What is going on, everybody? So today I have a fun one for you. A really interesting tank that we've been servicing for a long time now. It's got to be going over like 4.5 years or something like that. We picked this up a while ago from a different service company, and when we first got this tank, it was already well established and it was a mature aquarium. There were some issues with corals overgrowing, invasive corals, and the tank just wasn't what the customer really wanted. But we've made some changes. But anybody who's ever had a tank for a long time knows when you do major changes or even small changes to a tank, it has drastic consequences. And because we had to do drastic changes to this tank, there were some consequences, and we had to deal with it. So let's waste no time. Let's head to that customer's house right now. I haven't been there in a long time. Tommy of Tanknicians usually does this tank, so it's been a minute since I've been there. But I'm really excited to see how the tank is looking, and yeah, let's go ahead and head there right now. All right, so here we are at the customer's tank, and I just want to tell you guys how excited I am to share this tank with you. Now, I've shared it with you guys in the past, and when we first got this tank, I think it was already like 4 or 5 years in. Another service company was taking care of it, and they basically, how the service company dealt with this tank. Now, we had the monopora, but it was mainly covered in pulsing xenia and clove polyps. Now, the reason why the service company put the pulsing xenia in here was because it was kind of a good regulator. It was able to kind of clean the tank, kept everything balanced. But it quickly got out of hand, and there was pulsing xenia just took over the whole aquarium. And there was still some things like discosoma mushrooms and some zoas here and there, but mainly it was pulsing xenia, and it was way out of control. So we got called up because they weren't happy with their old service company, and we took a look at the tank, and we decided to do a treatment on the pulsing xenia to get it out of here. The treatment was pretty hard for the overall tank though, because the treatment that we used for the pulsing xenia was also made it hard for soft corals to kind of succeed in this tank. So the tank was going through a bit of a reset, it was a bit stressed out, but the pulsing xenia died. And when that pulsing xenia died, it was kind of part of the filtration of the tank. So when it finally died, there was a huge swing in the balance of the aquarium, right? And it was basically like we were just starting over. And the customer was very frustrated, but we knew at Tanknicians, me and Tommy knew that, it was just a matter of time before we could get the tank looking right. But when you're in the moment, a lot of people don't see that. They just see my tank looks really bad right now, everything's dead or dying. It was not a good moment. And it took a while, but the tank did start to bounce back. And then, you go through the brown ugly stage, where you have the brown diatoms and things like that. And we dealt with the brown stage for a while. And then we dealt with the green hair algae. The tank had to find its equilibrium. It had to get back to what it was. It did have some of that good bacteria still somewhere in here. We needed to swing the balance back into its favor. And after years of hard work, it's finally starting to really come into itself. And it's just been really satisfying knowing that we could get this tank looking again. It just needed time. We needed patience. When we first put this coral in, for an example, this toadstool, it was a small piece, and there was some frustration being had because the polyps weren't out. It just wasn't looking good. It was just a lump right there. But it's because it needed time, and the tank needed time. So now I look back at that moment and seeing this toadstool with the polyps fully out and as big as it is, and this one looking as good as it is, it's really satisfying. The fish have always been good. They've always been spoiled. They've always done really well. We've added a couple more fish to the tank, but the fish have always done well in this tank. They've always been well taken care of. But we've seen a crazy amount of growth recently. Leather corals, Euphyllia corals, it's a true mixed reef. Monopora, you can see this thing's just dripping, just growing in every way. We've got some dead spots here, star polyps trying to come through. We've brushed that star polyp back. But to be honest, I'm not worried about the purple monopore. It grows like crazy, and we kind of also have to keep fragging it because it's digging into the leather coral, and you know, let these two fight, let them have it out, they'll keep each other in check. And yeah, the mushrooms, look at the color on that, wow. You have to keep it on the canyon tree, although it is serving a purpose, keeping the tank clean and balanced. Zoas are growing. We even have this monopore that's been dead for years starting to grow back. Blasto looks amazing. That blast actually was one head that came from me from my old tank. Looks amazing now. All right, here's a vantage point from the other side. And there's a toadstool. It's actually split. There's two of them, and then there's a little piece about to fall off to create another one. We have a frog spawn right here looking good. Hammer coral that's still not great. I'm not really excited by the way that looks. I don't know what's going on there, but cabbage coral hiding in there. Now these pieces before were so small. They've grown so much. We have a lot of empty space right here. A lot of feather dusters here. This rock is very old and it's starting to actually deteriorate. It's probably got a ton of beneficial bacteria in there, but it's actually starting to fall apart and turn to dust. Some green algae. You could probably use some cleanup crew in this tank, but I love how this has gotten much more open. We've kind of cleared this room here to open up the tank, allow better flow, and plus to be able to see fish like this little Midas bunny better. More mushrooms. All the soft corals are doing great in this tank. Look at this lepto. This 24 karat lepto. I highly recommend this coral because you start with a small little piece like that, and then look how it grew. And then you'll have a whole rock that's just bright gold. Like, this is one of my favorite corals by far. Unbelievable. And if it could just eventually cover this whole piece, just a bright gold rock. I mean, come on. Blasto again. I love that one. My little guy, I miss him. Maybe I shouldn't have given him up. Trumpet corals growing like crazy all the way underneath. It's only not growing on this side because of mushrooms keeping it in check. But yeah, the mushrooms, we might have to frag that up too because these mushrooms are starting to take over. So you have blue discosomas, you have the green ones, and anybody who's ever kept these types of mushrooms know how fast they can grow, and they'll even outcompete zoas, and this one's starting to kind of overlap that zoa there. Another trumpet coral as we go in the back, long-nosed hawkfish. What's up, bud? And yeah, some leather coral up top, which I think that's one of their favorite corals. They've had that one since the inception of the tank. Everything is looking really, really good. That red monopore, it's hard to tell right now, but that's a red monopore, and the one up top is purple. Yeah, this tank's been up for over a decade. Oh, look at that micromusa right there. That was my coral too. Looking good. I'd like to add more coral in this tank, but there's really not much room. I don't even know. I mean, I guess there's some free spots, but you definitely have to address these mushrooms right here so they don't get in the way. And it's not an easy tank to get into to kind of like maneuver. It's awkward. Like this side doesn't open, so I can't get into here. I can get over there, but I can't. It's hard to get into this whole area. It's very hard to be able to manage. But there is room for coral. We're just gonna have to make some hard choices of what needs to stay and what doesn't need to stay. But I'd love to see more leptos in here. How cool would that be? Put one there maybe. And yeah, let's get some more encrusting corals in here. And SPS are doing well. Maybe an acro? I don't know. There's no room for an acro. I don't know. I'm just really proud of the way this tank has come, and it just goes to show that like patience does pay off if you just, you know, do the steps in the right way. Don't rush. Don't go for easy solutions. And you gotta have faith that you're going to be able to eventually see, you know, get there. And slowly you'll see results. But as long as you're seeing results, if it's slow, it doesn't matter. Two little puffers. These guys are model citizens in this aquarium. Love, man, what a great tank. All right, down below here is the refugium, the filtration area. Now, when we first started this tank, there was a completely different setup. We added this sump. We redid the plumbing and stuff like that. So we got our, let's see here, return section over there. Refugium section right here, which is cranking. Love refugiums, especially on mature tanks. I don't recommend them right like from the get-go, but as your tank matures and as you get a lot of bio load, definitely love having refugium. They add so much to the tank and they help keep it stabilized. Protein skimmer section, which is really big for protein skimmer section. You could actually probably fit a lot more biomedia in there. Some other things if you kind of like add a section. So might do that in the future. And ATO top off right there, and then the return pump right here. And then we have, this used to be all run by Apex. We tore it all out. We got rid of the Apex and we kept this tank as simple as possible. Don't need the Apex, it's not necessary. We have our Sentia doser right here, Wi-Fi enabled, have that on our phone. We have an ATO, tunes the ATO right there, a lot simpler to deal with than the Apex ATO. And they're just, this tank is, it's a lot simpler, it's a lot less cluttered down here. It's so much more open than it was before. And yeah, Apex system is cool and all that stuff, but I think for this particular situation, didn't really need it. I mean, we have everything we need here, and the tank, yeah, the results speak for themselves, right? So I think the Apex was just overkill on a tank like this. I'm not saying the Apex is bad, just for a tank like this, it caused a lot more problems than it did give us solutions. I just love the different color mushrooms in here. You have the gold discosoma, the blue, you have a green, and then you have these freaking beautiful reds over here. Like, man, what a great coral that is. All the different colors that it comes in. But we're gonna leave it off here, head to the next job if you guys wanna come along for that. Be headed there pretty soon. But one thing I wanna add is when you have a tank that is this mature and that's been going on and running for as long as this one has, where you have big corals like that, monopore, all these fast growing corals, you deplete all of your nutrients in this tank. So not only all the stuff that keeps the coral alive, but your calcium alkalinity, your trace elements, all that stuff you deplete really quick. So when you have a tank that's fully matured like this, all these guys are competing for the same thing, calcium alkalinity, etc. So you have to make sure you're on your game, and the only way to do that is really dosing. You can't, unless you want to everyday dose to a tank like this, it's really not worth it. So that's why we hooked up the Sentia doser here today. Or that's why we have the Sentia doser hooked up, because this tank is just going through tons and tons of calcium and alkalinity, and we're dosing kalkwasser also to this tank to help with the pH. But everything is looking good, and that's why everything is so massive. Something like this toadstool cannot get big if it doesn't have the right alkalinity. And man, everything looks great. I'm really happy with the way things look. Even found some corals like buried, glued those up. But yeah, a water change like this in the next couple days, this tank is gonna be looking even better, because we did a significant water change and replaced some of those trace elements to the tank, some of that potassium, iodine, things like that. Yeah, really happy with the way this tank is ending up. All right, so I wanted to take you guys to this next tank because this kind of ties everything all in. Now, this customer is very frustrated because he's not able to grow SPS in his tank well. And as this is my first time at the tank, this is my first time I've actually had eyes on the tank. And as I'm going through it, I see good coralline algae growth, even growing on that conch there. And the soft corals look great, so I don't think there's anything really wrong with their water chemistry. I see these zoas are growing like crazy. Recordia mushrooms are looking really good. Now we've put sample corals in here, sample SPS corals in this tank, and they have not done well. They haven't taken off. Now there is aptasia in this tank, which did not come from us. We quarantine our corals. Be clear about that. But it was previously in the tank. This is a job we picked up. And then this monopore right here, we actually dipped it a couple times, and it's actually starting to come back. So that's awesome. That's a great sign. But as I'm going through this tank, I'm seeing corals that the soft corals are doing great. The torch coral looking great. So the easier beginner corals are doing great. I just think that the tank is not yet ready to take it to that next level. Now, how do we get there? Well, patience and time, like we saw from the tank previous. This tank needs the right biodiversity, and it just needs time for that to grow. So patience right now, and then we can add some stuff like acans, blastomusos, and keep introducing bacteria strains to the tank. And eventually, I think he'll be able to have his SPS coral like he always wants. But stay tuned, because I will definitely keep you posted how this tank turns out. But I know we're going to get there, and I know we're on the right path. So thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good one.